Welcome back, everybody. We're continuing to work through my Taming the Toxic Workplace workbook, and today we're going to continue with the topic of the 5 categories of troubled coworkers or leaders. Number 2 category is mental health issues. This is a little bit of a sensitive one, so let's work our way through this. So we're not talking about that anyone who has mental health issues has problems at work. We are not saying that at all. What we're saying is that when you are trying to figure out what's going on in a workplace and why some folks are being disruptive, if not destructive, and they're really causing chaos in the work environment, mental health issues are something that can be at the root of those problems. So we're trying to assess things so that we can figure out exactly what is wrong, or at least make a good educated guess. Again, as we've said before, this is not for the purpose of judging or condemning or diagnosing. We're simply trying to figure out where the problem is coming from so that later on in the book we can figure out how we're going to deal with it. What the problem is, to a very great extent, dictates what your strategy for effectively handling it needs to be. So that's why this step is so important, why we're breaking it down into one category each week so that we can learn a little bit about each one separately. So mental health issues can be anything as simple as a reaction to acute stress. Say that someone has recently had a serious illness in the family, or they've been sick or injured, or their relationship is having a lot of trouble. Whatever the case may be, if they're having an acute reaction to stress and they're not really acting like themselves and they're having trouble in the work environment, mental health issues as a category can be as simple as that. They also can be untreated mental health issues where maybe someone does have a diagnosis, not that we can give them, that's not our place to do, but that it's there, it's pervasive across environments, as we say in the social work and psychology fields, that they have the exact same type of issue in every area of their life. So an example would be someone who just simply has conflict everywhere they go. They have conflict at the office, they bring it with them. No one starts it with them. They generate it all by themselves, and they have trouble with their children's teachers at school. They have trouble with their landlord, whatever the case may be. So when that type of situation exists, especially when it is in every area of their life, it's possible that there may be an undiagnosed, untreated mental health issue there that's causing them to interact with other people in ineffective, difficult ways that really compromise those relationships. That's another potential scenario for mental health issues being in play. Another subcategory of mental health would be people who really truly have a lack of insight. It doesn't mean they can't change. It doesn't mean that their behaviors in the work environment can't be adjusted. But some mental health issues, by definition, mean that it is going to be extraordinarily difficult for people to see and understand their own behavior and the impact that that has on other people and that has on the work environment. So examples of that would be some of the more serious diagnoses of things like schizophrenia. When those symptoms are present, those folks are just simply going to be needing to deal with their symptoms and not able to deal with abstractly considering their own behavior in the grander scheme of life. They're really beset with symptoms and having to handle that in real time. Same type of thing in a little bit different way for personality disorders. Those folks have an exceedingly hard time understanding how their behavior impacts other people. Again, does not mean any of these folks with any of these types of diagnoses are bad people at all. It just simply means that when you're trying to figure out what's going wrong in the work environment, mental health issues can and are sometimes at the root. So how can you look for this? What are some signs? Sudden changes in behavior. If someone has been steady Eddie for 15 years and they have been as reliable as they could possibly be, and they're suddenly rarely there and yelling at people out in an open office space, well, that's somebody that probably is having some issues. Maybe in that situation it's an acute life stressor and they just simply need someone to reach out to them, or they need to go get some help. And we'll get to strategies for dealing with the issue later on, but the point for right now is sudden changes in behavior are always a red flag of there being some sort of a problem with that individual or in that individual's life. Always, always. Doesn't automatically mean it's mental health. Doesn't automatically mean it's addiction like we talked about last week, but it does mean something is going on that's impacting them in the work environment, and that's something that we need to take into account when assessing the problems. The other things are erratic behavior. Now, there's a little bit different spin on this. This means behavior that is just simply not making sense for the circumstances that are present at the time. So it isn't just that somebody stopped showing up or they have a pattern of calling in every Monday or whatever the case may be. This is someone whose behavior is really outside the parameters of the norm for that work environment in a way that is disruptive. And the key element of erratic behavior is that it's unpredictable. You don't really know which direction the person is going to go. So, one day they might be yelling at people and the other day they might be crying at their desk. Another day they might be bothering people, visiting all day long up and down the hallway, and another day they might be withdrawn and sitting at their desk refusing to speak to anyone. So kind of extreme opposites of behavior, what I mean by erratic. Another sign that you can look for is unpredictable interactions. That someone one day will be super sweet and the next day will be cold and the next day will be mean and the day after that will be hostile and yelling at people. So if you have someone in the work environment that you can't count on what kind of interaction you're going to have with them, that sort of unpredictability could mean a number of things. It could mean addiction issues like we talked about last week. It could mean mental health issues. And again, the point for today is to just try and figure out what is going on way out here, back it all the way up, so that we can figure out what is the root of the problem. The root of the problem, not the symptoms. The bad behavior in the work environment is always, always, always a symptom of a root cause. Something is going wrong in that individual's life or within themselves as a person, and that has an impact on the work environment, often a very negative impact, sometimes a very destructive impact, and as we've seen in the news many, many times, sometimes a deadly impact. So our purposes for now are to try and figure out what are the root causes. So far we've talked about addiction, we've talked about mental health. Next week we're going to move on. In a couple weeks after that, we're going to go all the way through the 5 categories and give you just little nuggets of information that you can use to try and figure out what's going on to make your work life better. I'll see you next week. Thank you for joining me. And in the meantime, come on over, join me on my Facebook page, Deb Holland PhD. Come and look me up at debhollandlcsw.com. I'd love to connect. We'll see you soon.